The office of Sterling and Graves was experiencing its typical rhythm, which consisted of the sound of keyboards, talks that were kept quiet, and the odd burst of laughter coming from the corner where the inner circle convened. Lila Carter, the calm and meek secretary who brought coffee, filed papers, and tolerated their patronizing looks, was one of the individuals who stood among them. She was entirely unnoticeable to them. Simply another face in the background, someone they could make fun of without fear of retaliation, presuming that she would never struggle back. Lila had observed as they did all of these things. This includes every dirty trade, every unethical communication, and every confession that is spoken. She had recordings of talks that they believed to be private, as well as copies of files that they believed to have been wiped. They believed that she overlooked it, or even worse, that she did not care about it. However, these were in error. Richard Sterling and Marcus Graves, Lila's superiors, had been manipulating client finances, padding their expense accounts, and intimidating staff into silence for a number of months. Where did they lack knowledge? In the meanwhile, Lila had been recording everything. Smiling, Richard and Marcus were called into the conference room, and they assumed that the reason for the call was to discuss their most recent big win. Inside, you will find their severance agreements, as well as a well-constructed dossier detailing their criminal activities, which is prepared to be sent to the SEC in the event that they put up a fight. On the other hand, she had been holding out for the ideal opportunity to attack. As Lila remained at the window and watched them vanish into the mob below, the office erupted in murmurs, and then applause spread across the building. She was the daughter of the largest shareholder, and she was helping to clean the home while working secretly. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything reached its climax. Marcus had just smiled as he threw a crumpled report onto Lila's desk with a dismissive, "Fix this, sweetheart." Richard had just finished berating another young employee to the point of tears. That is when she broke into a grin. "For you, it is now too late to recover. Do not confuse generosity with a lack of strength." She stepped onto the stage where Richard had previously made his smug, self-congratulatory remarks, and she called for an all-hands meeting. As she tapped the microphone, the audience fell into complete silence. In addition, the quiet ones should never, ever be underestimated. The promotion system would be merit-based rather than favoritism-based. Everyone in the workplace was filled with a mixture of amazement and excitement. Since nobody had anticipated this happening, without prior notification, the board of directors showed there the next morning. On the other hand, not everyone was reveling. On the contrary, they discovered Lila comfortably seated at the head of the table. "All along, I was aware that you were unique. It is true that I made an effort to caution Richard about his ... excesses. Throughout Richard's career, Daniel had served as his right-hand man, the one who silently authorized every shady transaction. Because according to these emails, you weren't just complicit, you were the mastermind behind the offshore accounts. We have the potential to be an outstanding group." It was with a firm voice that she said, "Gentlemen, you have been terminated." During the time that she was sliding to envelopes over the polished wood, their laughter died up in their throats, as was the case with Lila. The remaining leaders were individuals who had fought against the corruption and had been neglected on account of their actions. It was revealed that Lila was more than simply an assistant. Faces of Richard and Marcus were pale with astonishment, as they were taken out of the premises by security at 20 minutes to the hour. To tell you the truth, Sterling and Graves was decaying from the inside out, but that is not the case now. Her father was the one she called when she picked up the phone. "It's done." It was then that the lady whom they had mistakenly undervalued turned out to be the one they would never forget. The takeaway from this tale? What about when they ultimately make their move? The elevator doors closed behind Richard and Marcus, so ensuring that their destiny would not be altered, Lila Carter, the lady whom they had disregarded, ridiculed, and undervalued, was suddenly the most influential person in the room. Moreover, she was only beginning her journey. Following the departure of Sterling and Graves, Lila did not waste any time. "I'm sure you're all curious about what comes next," she remarked, her tone of voice relaxed, yet authoritative. Lila Carter was no longer only the subdued assistant. I'd become a legendary figure, someone who causes disruption. A queen who had dethroned the kings of corruption using nothing but time, accuracy, and a paper trail as her only means of victory. She described her strategy as follows: do away with the harmful hierarchy, Safeguards afforded to leakers. A method that allows users to report wrongdoing without fear of reprisal will be provided. There was an increase in profits. The morale of the workforce was skyrocketing, and Lila had become a symbol of hope for underdogs all over the world. Even Forbes magazine featured her on its cover, with the heading, "The Woman Who Played the Long Game and Won." She was able to achieve this feat. Participation in profits. Those who had put in the effort would, in the end, be the ones to benefit from it. It was a resounding round of applause. He was the darkness that lurked behind the shadows. However, the game is not yet over, though. Simply put, it is moved. Lila discovered Daniel Reeves, the smarmy chief financial officer, waiting for her as she made her way back to her office, which was now her office. He started by saying Lila, or should I say Ms. Carter, with a slick smile on his face. She regarded him with a look that was indecipherable. She pulled out her phone and exclaimed, "Funny," as she did so. A lack of color appeared on Daniel's face. Carter and Associates in freefall, was it all a fluke? This was the headline that the media published. The button on Lila's desk was pushed by her security. One half of the executive team had left by the time the week came to a close. A lady who eliminated corporate wrongdoing with a smile and a paper trail was given the nickname, the Silent Executioner, by the media, when the tale became publicized and she was mentioned in the media. Still, Lila was not finished. During the annual gala of the firm, which was formerly Richard and Marcus's favorite occasion, Lila walked the stage wearing a sophisticated black gown, and the audience was attentively listening to every word she spoke. "Sterling and Graves do not exist anymore," she said. "Welcome to Carter and Associates." A new logo, a new mission statement, and one last surprise appeared on the screen that was located behind her. A legal action brought against Richard and Marcus for the theft of money. Is it the star witness? Then it is Daniel Reeves. One idea kept running through Lila's thoughts as she drank champagne and watched her erstwhile tormentors scurry in the headlines. You should never undervalue those who are silent, since those who are arrogant are preoccupied with talking. Those who are actually strong are already starting to move. When do they make their move? Because it is already too late. In the business world, the collapse of Sterling and Graves had caused shockwaves to go across the industry. However, tales create adversaries. Moreover, hers were only beginning to take shape. You were the one who believed that he was uncontrollable. You did, however, overlook one thing. A quarter of a year after the acquisition, Carter and Associates was doing very well. However, when she sat in her office, which was located in the corner of the room, she became aware of something peculiar. A file that was clearly labeled confidential had been transferred to her desk. Not a sender, not a note. Elias Voss is the only name that appears on the interior. Elias Voss was definitely not your typical businessman. He was a rich hermit who specialized in hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, and burying problems before they ever saw daylight. It was a picture of a younger version of herself sitting at the desk of her former assistant, feeling neglected and underappreciated. Richard Sterling has been his protege throughout his career. The phone of Lila rang. The number is not known. "Congratulations on your victory, Miss Carter," a voice that was smooth and chilly communicated to her. Make a click. Carter and Associates servers had a failure the next morning. Data about customers is no longer available. Deleted all of the financial records. Each and every backup went awry. Despite the efforts of Lila's crew, the harm had already been done. However, Lila did not get anxious. It was a smile. For the reason why Lila Carter never gathered all of her evidence in a single location. A number that she had uncalled in years was phoned by her when she took out a burner phone and dialed it. According to her, it's time. After just a few hours, a counterattack was initiated. The whole blackmail collection of Voss was disclosed by an unnamed whistleblower, which exposed notable figures such as legislators, CEOs, and even a few celebrities. A startling appearance on the top page of the Financial Times was made for each and every illicit transaction that Voss had ever mediated. As investors left in fear, his stock saw a precipitous crash. Voss had made an attempt to break her. Instead, she had merely placed him at the top of the list of public enemies. The idea of losing was foreign to Voss. In a desperate attempt, he did something. His arrival at her workplace was unexpected, uninvited, and filled with irritation. Then he growled, "You have no idea who you're dealing with," said the man. Lila sat back in her chair as if she were completely at ease. Her response was, "In all honesty, Elias, I do. It was a button on her desk that she pressed. The doors were opened. SEC officers, FBI investigators, and most damning of all, Meyer Voss's own betrayed chief financial officer, who was clutching a USB disk with a record of every crime he had ever done, entered the room. According to Lila, who said gently, "You shouldn't have threatened me. Now look what happened." After a week goes by, charges of fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy were brought against Elias Voss, who was taken into custody. The systems of Carter and Associates were back up and running, with an even higher level of protection. Position on the board of directors of the most successful investment business in the nation was made available to Lila. She took a quick peek at the framed photograph that was resting on her desk as she signed the acceptance forms. This is how things evolve. Titles are not the source of power. It is a matter of patience. You need to have a plan. And what is the most important thing? It is important to be aware of when to strike, simply because those who seem to be weak, they are often the most hazardous of all the options.